Kristen and Dawson, welcome.
Thank you, Debbie, so much for inviting me here to speak. I'm really excited to see y'all here because one of the things I love most is talking about food and talking about how we can just enjoy food and enjoy life more. So this talk is going to be valuable whether you have type 1 or type 2 diabetes, whether you have pre-diabetes, or if you just want to learn more so you can support somebody that you love with diabetes. Let me tell you a little bit about my teaching style. I promise not to tell you what to do. Okay, I'm not going to tell you what to eat. My job is I just really want to give you knowledge, skills, and perspective that will improve your health. That's my part. Y'all's part then is to decide, okay, what do I want to do with this? Because we are blessed, not if we know what to do, but if we do what we know, right? Okay. Clicker. Here's an overview of what we're going to be covering in this class. We're going to answer the question, what exactly does it mean to eat healthy? There's a lot of misinformation out there. So hopefully we will clarify what exactly it means to eat healthy. We're going to talk about what to eat, how much to eat, and when to eat. We're going to talk about what foods raise our blood sugar and what foods don't raise our blood sugar. And we're going to tie it all together at the end with some easy meal planning. We're going to learn to get information from nutrition labels, do some carb counting, and we're going to put it all together. I'd like to begin with a video. This is a short film clip from the all-time classic Mickey and the Beanstalk. Were we going to adjust the lights? Okay. Okay. So Donald, Goofy, and Mickey are in the midst of a terrible drought, and they're feeling somewhat restricted as to what they can eat. Okay? So when we are trying to eat less or change the way that we're eating, we might just be able to identify with our little cartoon friends here. All right, here we go. Poor Donald. We're going to fast forward a little bit. So Mickey goes out to sell the cow, and Donald and Goofy are fantasizing about all the food that they are soon going to be able to eat.
Donald. Anyway, Mickey decided to sell the cow, so now there would be meat on the table again. Please, slow. Birthday love, sweet potato pie, pancakes piled up till we reach the sky. Lots of
So hopefully, none of us have ever been on the brink of starvation like Donald, Goofy, and Mickey. But I wanted to show this because when we feel like we're being restricted in our food, it makes us do strange things. Donald went a little crazy, didn't he? And if we feel like we're being deprived, we might just want to eat and eat and eat and eat and eat till we die. If we're on a diet, we might do well for a while, but we will always fall back into our old ways unless we're really enjoying the way we're eating. What we're going to talk about today is not a diet, and it's not to put restrictions on you. And it's not like one of my patients said to me the other day. He said, I know what it means to eat healthy. If it tastes good, spit it out. Rather, I believe God delights in us when we acknowledge Him as the giver of all good things, all good foods. And we gratefully delight in the things He gives us. King Solomon was one of the wisest people that ever lived, and he came to this conclusion about living well. He said, so I commend the enjoyment of life because nothing is better for a man under the sun than to eat and drink and be glad. Eat your food with gladness, he says. So a very familiar verse probably to all of us. So whatever you do, whether you eat or drink, do all for the glory of God. And we can glorify God by enjoying the things He gives us, enjoying the good food that He's created for us. In His great kindness to us, He has provided us plenty, satisfying our hearts with food and gladness. I want to give you hope that we can eat healthier and we can enjoy it more than eating less healthy. If we're yielded to God and our hearts are filled with thankfulness for the good things He gives us, then our meals can come alive with color and health and enjoyment. So why is eating healthy especially important for those of us with diabetes? Well, as you know, it's all about blood sugar, right? When we eat, the carbohydrates in our food get broken down to glucose. Now this, sorry, all right, pointer. All right, whoops, one more. All right. The food gets broken down to glucose. Glucose is in blue right here. This is the bloodstream. And when glucose gets in the bloodstream, the pancreas releases a hormone, insulin. Okay, that's shown here in the pink. Insulin's job is, it's like the key that unlocks the cell so the glucose can get in and feed the cell. Okay, so this is the insulin. This is the cell right here. The insulin binds to the cell and allows the glucose to come in and feed the cell. This is what is normally supposed to happen. If there is no insulin over here, like in type 1 diabetes, there's no insulin, the glucose cannot get into the cell. It just bounces back off and goes back into the blood system, raises the blood sugar level, and as we know, the high blood sugar level, that's what causes all the complications in diabetes. And so in type 1, there is no insulin produced at all, and that's why type 1 diabetics always have to take insulin. Now, again, insulin is the key. It unlocks the cell so the glucose can come in and feed the cell. If the glucose can't get into the cells tell our brain that we are starving, even if we've just eaten a meal, because all that glucose is trapped in our blood, and it can't get in and feed our cells. Now, type 2 diabetes is just a little bit different. Again, the top picture shows what is supposed to happen. We eat the food, the carbohydrates break down to glucose, the pancreas produces insulin, the insulin binds to the cell, the glucose gets in and feeds the cell. Now the bottom shows you type 2 diabetes. There's usually plenty of insulin in type 2 diabetes. It's like there's all these keys floating around, but the cells have become resistant to it. It's like the cells have changed the locks, and the glucose can't get in anymore. The insulin doesn't work. It can't bind. Glucose bounces off, goes back in the blood system. So now not only do we have high blood sugar levels, we have high blood insulin levels. Now we know that the blood sugar level, it damages every system in our body, and that's what causes the complication. And Debbie's going to talk more about that, the complications and how to avoid those next week. But high blood insulin levels also causes a lot of problems. This is what's known as insulin resistance. It has 3 main symptoms. Increased hunger, which really you can't even call it hunger. It's like intense food cravings. It's like Donald and Goofy fantasizing about their food, just craving all these different, types of foods that they wanted to eat. The second thing, insulin resistance, it causes our body to store more fat. Okay? Insulin is very good at that. That's part of its job. It stores fat. This is a 1-pound model of fat tissue. I'm going to pass it around so y'all can get a good look at that. You just pass it around. This is why it's so hard to lose weight when we have type 2 diabetes, because that high insulin level, it just wants to store that fat. That's what its job is, and it's really good at it. Just packs it on. The third symptom of insulin resistance is feeling sleepy, especially after we eat. We don't feel like doing anything, let alone exercise. So there's this vicious cycle going on, right? We're extra hungry, so we eat more, then we produce more insulin. The more insulin we produce, the hungrier we get, and the more fat is stored, and the sleepier we get, and on, and the fatter we get. This is a 5-pound model of fat tissue. Okay, I'm going to pass this around for y'all. It's heavy. It is. Unfortunately, if we are 50% over our healthy weight, we're not 50% healthier. Too bad it doesn't work out that way. But research has strongly shown that being at a healthy weight, or even just working towards a healthy weight, really reduces our risk for chronic disease. Not only for diabetes and the complications of diabetes, but heart disease, stroke, cancer, a lot of chronic diseases. And even losing only 7 to 10% of our weight will improve our health and decrease our risks. But how do we do this with this vicious cycle going on? Well, for those of us with insulin resistance, which is everyone with type 2 diabetes and pre-diabetes, I can't teach this class without talking about one thing. It's not related to food, but I'm going to go as far as to say it might just cure insulin resistance. Does anyone want to guess what that might be? Exercise. Yes. So before we talk about food, I just want to share a couple really quick thoughts about exercise. So as we get older, say after our 20s, our bodies start to need less and less calories. It's a certain percentage, it drops every year. We have to eat less, or our weight is going to go up. And I don't know about y'all personally, but I cannot maintain a healthy weight unless I exercise. Even if I eat right and eat small amounts, I can't do it. And this is why. Not only does exercise burn more calories while we're exercising, it causes our bodies to burn more calories all the time, even when we're sleeping. It's because exercise makes muscle. This is a model of muscle tissue. You can see that it is filled with blood vessels. Now compared to the fat tissue that's being passed around, there's a lot of activity going on in this muscle. It raises our metabolism, thus our bodies burn more calories. Okay, quickly, there are 3 things that will help us have a successful exercise program. If we have a plan, if we have a partner, and if we're really enjoying what we're doing. Okay, those 3 things are really proven to make us successful and have an effective exercise program. But the main thing we want to talk about tonight is food. We want to talk about how the foods we eat affect our blood sugar levels, because managing diabetes is all about managing blood sugar levels. So there are 3 categories of foods. We have carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. Our bodies need all 3 categories. Now some foods, like milk, contains more than one. In fact, milk contains all 3 categories: fats, carbohydrates, and protein. But only carbohydrates raise our blood sugar. Carbohydrates are the starches and the sugars that are broken down to the glucose. The glucose is the fuel that we run on. It's like the gas in the car. And we're going to spend most of our time talking about carbohydrates, but I briefly want to talk about healthy choices for fats and proteins. Protein foods. Healthy choices for protein foods are fish, especially the fatty fish, like salmon, beans and lentils, poultry, lean cuts of beef and pork, preferably pasture-raised or grass-fed beef and pork. And if you know a local farmer, all the better. Now, eggs. We used to think that eggs, they were on the unhealthy list, but we now know that eggs, it has dietary cholesterol in it, but it doesn't affect our blood cholesterol levels like we once thought. So eggs are not on the unhealthy food list anymore. So I'm very glad I never went for that anyway. Other healthy choices for protein foods would be your soy-based protein foods like tofu and eggs. Foods in the fat category do not raise blood sugar level. Healthy choices for fats: oils like olive oil or canola oil, some salad dressings, nuts. Nuts contain very healthy fats and lots of nutrients. Nut butters, avocados. Now, milk contains fat unless it's fat-free or skim. And I'm including dairy fat products in the healthy milk, in the healthy foods for fats, but this is very controversial. And this is because studies have found that saturated fats can be harmful to our health, but the studies that have found that have lumped dairy fats and meat fats together. There have been a few studies that have separated them and definitely found that the fatty meats are harmful to our health, but probably not the dairy fats. Okay, but we need more research on that. But if we want to have healthy fats, the most important thing is to avoid trans fat, like the plague. Okay? Trans fat is a man-made, chemically altered product. It's used to extend the shelf life of products. You find it in all kinds of packaged foods, like pastries or refrigerated dough products, many, many, many foods. And if you eat at restaurants, restaurants in most places don't have to tell you if trans fats are in their foods. Another reason why eating at restaurants may not always be the healthiest choice. Okay, back to carbohydrates. Carbohydrates have starches and sugars, and they also have fiber. The starchy carbohydrates are your breads, your grains, your starchy vegetables like corn, potatoes, and peas. Your carbohydrates with sugars are your whole fruits and your dairy products. Now today, we have many, many products with added sugars. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit. Carbohydrates also have fiber if they are complex carbohydrates. And we're going to talk about starches and sugars and how to choose the healthiest options in each one of those categories. Starches raise blood sugar. How do we choose the healthiest carbohydrate starches? Complex versus refined. The refined grains are your white breads, your white pasta, your white rice, many refined cereals, many breakfast cereals. Healthier choices would be your whole grains, your whole grain breads, your whole grain pastas, your brown rice, and your whole grain cereals like oatmeal. And this is why whole grains are so beneficial to your health. A grain contains 3 parts. You have the bran, which is extremely nutritious and contains fiber, vitamins, and minerals. You have the extremely nutritious germ, which contains antioxidants, vitamins, and healthy fats. And then you have the endosperm, which is the starchy carbohydrate. When grains are refined, all that is left is the fluffy white starchy carbohydrate portion, and the nutritious bran and the nutritious germ are discarded. There are also starchy vegetables. So like the sugars, all sugars and starches, starchy vegetables do raise our blood sugar. These are vegetables like butternut squash, potatoes, corn, peas, and grits. These are complex carbohydrates. So these would be a better choice than a refined carbohydrate. For example, a serving of butternut squash would be a better choice than a slice of white bread. But being aware that they do raise our blood sugar will help us eat sensible portions. Okay? So we've talked about 2 kinds of starchy carbohydrates, the grains and the starchy vegetables. These are carbohydrates that raise our blood sugar. But there is a type of carbohydrate that doesn't raise our blood sugar. And we can eat as much of these as we want. These are our glorious non-starchy vegetables. Not only are they gorgeously colorful, there's an endless variety of them, and there's a million different ways that we can prepare them. Delicious ways. They're so much fun to make and eat. And you really can never eat too many of them unless you eat a bushel of carrots and you turn orange, which is harmless but maybe annoying. But you know, it's easy to get in a rut of eating the same few vegetables over and over again. And why do we limit ourselves? We can branch out. We can indulge ourselves. We can veg out. And we can provide ourselves with marvelous benefits that you cannot get anyplace else. I can't say enough about the non-starchy vegetables. They are wonderful. Okay, we've talked about complex versus refined starches. Now let's talk about complex versus refined sugars. Refined sugars are the added sugars, the white sugars, the corn syrup. Americans are obsessed with sugar-sweetened beverages. Soft drinks, sweet tea, Kool-Aid, lemonade, energy drinks, sports drinks, juice drinks, on and on and on. And by the way, did you know that the top calorie source in our American teenagers' diet? Sugar-sweetened beverages, even more than pizza. It's shocking. I have a good friend who is about my age, and I've always considered him extremely healthy. He's never been overweight. He's extremely active, has a very active lifestyle, and has rarely ever gotten sick. Until one day, he had a major cardiac event and had open heart surgery, and we were all shocked. And I came to find out that he had gotten in the habit of drinking Coke every day, and not just one, but a few. There is so much research that shows us how damaging that is to our blood vessels. And we can only be as healthy as our blood vessels. And those refined sugars are inflammatory, and they really can destroy our blood vessels and our health. In fact, the World Health Organization just lowered the amount of sugar that we should have in our diet, the maximum amount, to 5% of our calories. So for an average-sized person, that would be about 4 to 6 teaspoons of sugar a day. That would be the maximum amount. That would be about 25 grams. 1 can of soda has about 40 grams of sugar. So rather than the refined sugars, we want to replace those with the complex sugars. Those are your fruits, your whole fruits, and your dairy products. Much healthier choices because fruits and dairy also have many, many other nutrients that are protective and beneficial to our health. The last type of carbohydrate we're going to talk about is fiber, fabulous fiber. Americans eat less than half of the fiber that our bodies need to stay healthy. And not only does fiber not raise our blood sugar levels, it actually helps us maintain them, helps us control them. And adequate fiber can reduce our risk for heart disease, stroke, high blood pressure, diabetes, complications of diabetes, gastrointestinal disease, on and on. Because fiber actually lowers our blood pressure, lowers our blood sugar, lowers our blood cholesterol, and it improves insulin resistance. And all complex carbohydrates have fiber. We usually need about 30 grams of fiber a day to keep us healthy. That's kind of a minimum. And it's important to eat fiber at every meal or snack and not try to get it all in at one meal, say at breakfast. It's really good to spread that out. And if we're not used to eating a lot of fiber, we want to gradually increase, just ease into it a little bit at a time so our bodies can adjust to it. Okay, let's put this all together in a simple way to plan healthy meals. There are 2 methods. There's a plate method, which is very similar to My Plate, and I hope you all have been to this website or are familiar with My Plate because there's just a wealth of information on this website, and it has just wonderful, wonderful, helpful things. So the plate method is one way for meal planning. Also carb counting, which involves measuring portion sizes and reading nutrition labels, is another way. And we'll talk about both of these. So the plate method, this is from the diabetes.org, which is the American Diabetes Association website. And this is a plate method that's very similar to My Plate, but it's geared especially towards those with diabetes. And you can go to their website and they have an interactive plate and you can put different foods on it and make different meals. It's kind of fun. And this is a great place to start with meal planning because it helps us increase the amount of vegetables we eat. It helps us to control our portion sizes, and it just helps us eat more balanced meals. Okay? And it's very easy. All we do, we make half of our plate those wonderful non-starchy vegetables, 1/4 of our plate a healthy protein choice, and 1/4 of our plate a healthy starch. Now, if oh, I know, I have a question for y'all. Okay, so looking at the food on this plate, which one of these 3 foods raises our blood sugar? Starch. The starch. Very good. That's right. Only the starch raises our blood sugar level. Okay, now you can add in a serving of dairy or a serving of fruit based on your blood sugar level. And your dietitian can help you with a meal plan. And just it's all based on your blood sugar level. So generally, if your blood sugar is not that well controlled, say an A1C over 8 or 9, then you probably want to limit your carbohydrate servings to 2 or 3 a meal. And as your blood sugar becomes stabilized, as exercise is happening, and they come down, then you can add in other carbohydrate servings like your dairy and your fruit. And I just want to point out that this is a 9-inch plate, okay? It's about this size. Okay, it's not a big 12-inch platter or anything. All right. So the plate method is a great place to start, but if we need to be a little more precise in keeping track of our carbohydrate servings, this is an easy way to do it. Remember, carbohydrates are our starches, fruits, and dairies. And 1 serving of carbohydrate is equal to 15 grams of carbohydrates, okay? That's the only number you have to remember, 15 grams. So 2 servings would be 30 grams. So for example, if you ate a serving of brown rice, 15 grams of carbohydrates, and it counts as 1 serving. If you eat 1 fruit, 15 grams of carbohydrates, it counts as 1 serving. If you eat 1 serving of dairy, you guessed it, 15 grams, 1 serving of carbohydrate. Easy, right? But how much is a serving? Okay, that's the tricky part. We'll talk about that. With our starchy foods, we'll look at some examples for serving sizes. It would be 1 slice of bread. So that 1 slice of bread would count as 15 carbohydrates, 1 serving. 1/2 cup of your starchy vegetables, like your corn or peas or potatoes. 1/2 cup would be about this much. Okay, it's about 1/2 cup. 3 to 6 crackers, 3/4 cup of cereal. That would be a bowl of cereal about this big. All right. And pasta, 1/3 cup. Now these are small serving sizes, and it's not that you can't eat more than that. You just have to know how many servings of carbohydrate you're eating. If you eat a sandwich, you're eating 2 carbohydrate servings because you'll have 2 pieces of bread. Serving sizes for fruit. 1 small to medium fruit would be 1 serving. 1 cup of berries. 1/2 cup of canned fruit. And with dried fruit, it's going to be a lot less because it's so concentrated. So it's about 1/8 cup, about 2 tablespoons. 15 to 20 grapes. Now juice, this would be 1 serving. This is 4 ounces, which is about 1/2 cup. But all the diabetes educators that I know do not recommend juice for their diabetic patients because juice tends to spike your blood sugar and then make it drop. So a whole piece of fruit is a much better choice than juice. Serving sizes for dairy. For milk, 1 cup or 8 ounces. Now, this is the same if it's fat-free, 1%, 2%, or whole milk, because those types of milk only vary in their fat content. The carbohydrate comes from the sugar, which is the lactose, and that doesn't change in all the different types of milk. So it's always the same serving, 1 cup, 8 ounces. Yogurt would be 6 ounces, 3/4 cup. Pudding and ice cream, 1/2 cup, which would be about a scoop of ice cream. Reading labels. Now, when label reading for carb counting, we're basically just going to look at 2 things. Okay? We're going to look at serving size and total carbs. Serving size is at the top, and we want to look at not only serving size, but we want to look at servings per container. It's very important because these numbers here only apply if I'm eating this serving size, which is 1/2 cup. If I eat 1 cup, I need to multiply these numbers by 2. If I eat the whole can, I need to multiply it by 4.5. It's 4.5 servings. Now, this is a can of pineapple. Y'all at the tables have some packages in front of you that you can look at and you can practice and you can follow along with me. Okay, so the first thing we want to look at is the serving size and servings per container. The second thing we want to look at is total carbohydrate. Total carbohydrate for this can of pineapple is 16 grams. We're going to minus the fiber because fiber doesn't raise our blood sugar. Okay, so we have 16 carbs minus 1 gram of fiber equals 15 grams of carbohydrate. And remember that 15 grams of carbohydrate equals 1 serving. So even if you've never done this before, you'll be a pro before you know it. It just takes a little practice, and it'll become second nature. You'll just automatically pick up the label and get it just like that. So we've talked about what to eat. We've talked about how much to eat. Now we're going to talk about when to eat. One principle when we're managing our blood sugar that's extremely important is consistency. Our bodies are made best to run on a schedule. So eating regular meals at regular times helps our blood sugar to be stabilized. We don't have to be rigid, but just consistent. The American Diabetes Association recommends eating within an hour after we wake up in the morning and spacing our meals every 4 to 6 hours without skipping any meals. Now, snacks. It used to be thought that diabetics had to snack in order to maintain a level blood sugar. But we now know that that's really not necessarily the case. And actually, excessive snacking can cause our blood sugar to go too high or us to gain excessive weight. So as you're checking your blood sugar level, you'll be able to tell if you need a snack to raise it up and maintain it. Okay. And if you do need a snack, then we can choose healthy snacks like peanut butter on celery with a few cranberries on it, a yogurt parfait with some fruit and nuts. We always want to combine a carbohydrate with a fat and a protein. The very worst snack we could have would be a refined carbohydrate, like a refined starch or a refined sugar by itself. So like a sugar-sweetened beverage or a pastry or candy, guaranteed to do bad things to your blood sugar level. We're going to shift gears just a little bit here. I love to hear people's stories. So when I'm at a class or a seminar, I always like to hear a little bit about the speaker. So I thought I'd share just a little bit of my story with y'all. I was very close to my daddy growing up. That's me in my little Easter outfit. I think I was about 4 years old. So my favorite part of the week was Mondays growing up because that was Daddy's day off. And he used to come pick me up at school and take me out to lunch every Monday. Columbus, Ohio, where I grew up, was a test city for fast food restaurants. So we would try a new fast food restaurant every week. I remember going to the grand opening of the original Wendy's. There it is. So not only did Daddy love fast food, he converted a closet in our house into an entire junk food pantry. Okay, it was fully stocked with sodas, chips, candy, cookies, you name it. So he had his first heart attack when I was in high school, and his second heart attack when I was in nursing school. And that's when I began to connect the dots between diet and disease. And I reformed my ways. But sadly, it was too late for Daddy, and we lost him in his 60s, and I was a young adult. And that has had a profound effect on me and really motivated me to want to help people live longer, healthier lives. So the last thing we're going to talk about, I think, for me, as a reformed junk food junkie, is the most encouraging part of this class. So understanding and applying these 3 principles, will help us not only enjoy eating healthy, but it'll help us enjoy eating healthy more than we've ever enjoyed eating less healthy. So much so that we'll never want to go back to the old ways. So our bodies are an amazing gift, and we can show our thankfulness and appreciation to God by taking excellent care of our bodies. God is the giver of all life, and we can be thankful for whatever level of health we have at the moment, as long as we're still alive. Instead of grumbling about the physical abilities that I've lost or I don't have, it pleases God for me to focus on being grateful for what I still have left. I used to enjoy running, but I have a bad knee now and I can't even run at all anymore. But I can still walk, and I'm very thankful that I can still walk. We have been blessed in this country with the greatest abundance and variety of healthy foods in all of history. So why do half of all Americans have a food or lifestyle-related disease? Well, there's a lot of reasons for that. I would answer that question, but one reason is that manufacturers have found ways to process foods to increase their profit margin. And this also decreases the nutritional value of these foods. But these are the foods they make the most money on, so these are the foods that are most heavily marketed. And these are the foods that are made from the refined carbohydrates, the refined starches, the refined sugars. They have very high sugar content, very high salt content, and they're addictive. In fact, the added sugars stimulates the same areas in our brain that cocaine does. So the more we eat of these foods, the more we eat of these foods. It causes these cravings that I call hyper-hunger. And the high sodium content in our food, it gives us this turbo thirst. And then we try to satisfy that with sugar-sweetened beverages, and the unhealthier we get. But the good news is we can gradually wean ourselves off of those unhealthy foods and learn to appreciate real food. When we decrease the salt and sugar that we're eating, we'll start to discover flavors and tastes that we've never even noticed before in foods. And we'll experience the freedom to gratefully enjoy our food and not feel bad or guilty about eating it. We'll have the freedom to enjoy. So I hope we all have something to take away from this class that will truly make a difference in helping us enjoy life more, enjoy food more, and to be healthier. And it's really wise to just pick one small area to start on at a time. And I would really love it if you all wrote down just one small change that you would want to make, whether it's replacing sugar-sweetened beverages with water, replacing refined grains with whole grains, or eating more of those wonderful non-starchy vegetables. Just for you, just for one small goal that where you want to start to improve your health. Thank you all so much for listening.